In the lush landscapes of Cambodia, where the mighty Mekong River meanders through its dense forests and ancient temples stand tall, a series of harrowing events cast a shadow of dread over the region in September of 2022. And this wasn't just the work of a ghostly apparition or a mythical creature, but rather a very real and deadly apex predator, one that is widely feared around the globe: crocodiles. In Cambodia, crocodile farming is a thriving industry, with many farms rearing these magnificent creatures for their valuable skin and meat. However, as with any venture that involves wild animals, there are inherent risks. Enter Mr. Luan Nam, a 72-year-old farmer whose life was deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the Cambodian countryside. Born and raised in the shadows of the ancient Angkor temples, Nam had witnessed the ebb and flow of life along the banks of the Tonle Sap River near the city of Siem Reap. The Tonle Sap, Southeast Asia's largest freshwater lake, teems with over 200 species of fish, including the rare Mekong giant catfish. Its skies are dotted with birds from the nearby Prectol Bird Sanctuary, a haven for endangered waterbirds. The surrounding wetlands whisper tales of elusive mammals like the smooth-coated otter and the fishing cat. And of course, these waters are also home to the stealthy and critically endangered Siamese crocodile. It was along these very banks of the Tonle Sap that Nam would go on to establish his crocodile farm, a sprawling expanse that became home to over 1,000 of these prehistoric reptiles. Nam wasn't just a farmer. He was widely regarded, in fact, as a crocodile whisperer of sorts, and was also president of the local Crocodile Farmers Association. For decades, he seized the opportunity to study and nurture these creatures right from when they were tiny hatchlings through to their adulthoods, and this went on to allow him to know his crocodiles like no other. He would learn each one of their quirks, as well as their body language, enabling him to tell when they were agitated, hungry, or just wanting a lazy day in the sun. He would often recount tales of his incredible close encounters with these beasts to his grandchildren, ones that consisted of moments when he looked into a crocodile's eyes and saw not just a mindless beast, but a sentient living being with its own thoughts and emotions. This deep connection and understanding that he had with his crocs went on to earn him respect in the eyes of many, including fellow farmers and the local community. In fact, many other practitioners of the activity would seek his advice on crocodile rearing, and by all accounts he was always eager to share his wisdom. However, as the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. As Nam's levels of comfort around these ancient predators grew by the day, it would pave way for what was to many an inevitability: human error in the form of a momentary lapse in judgment, a fateful mistake that would set the stage for the tragedy that followed. On September 18, 2022, the morning sun cast its golden rays over Mr. Nam's crocodile farm, signaling the start of another day. As was his routine for decades, Mr. Nam began his day with a thorough inspection of the farm. Armed with his trusty checklist and a keen eye for detail, he moved as he usually would from one enclosure to the next, ensuring that the water levels were right, the feeding mechanisms were working, and the fences were intact. Nam's farm was once again a sprawling expanse near the Tonle Sap, and was divided into multiple enclosures, each housing a specific age group of crocodiles. The adult enclosure, home to the largest and most formidable of his reptilian charges, was always the one that he would approach with even more caution than he did the others. As he neared the adult enclosure, he had noticed that one of his crocs had been making its way to a bunch of freshly laid eggs in the cage. This prompted the experienced 72-year-old to enter the enclosure to remove the crocodile, and with a stick in hand, he would attempt to corral the creature away from the eggs. However, this is when disaster would strike, when the powerful reptile would suddenly lunge forth, latch onto his stick, and pull him swiftly into the water with little effort. The sound of Nam splashing would instantly set off the predatory instincts of every croc in the enclosure, and within moments, Nam found himself surrounded by over 40 fully grown and now highly triggered crocodiles. For a brief moment, the atmosphere inside the enclosure was palpable with an eerie stillness, and time seemed to stand still. Mr. Nam, despite his shock, knew that any sudden movements would trigger an attack, and so he tried to remain as calm as possible, hoping to find an escape route. However, the crocodiles, ever opportunistic predators, would sense the vulnerability and quickly figure out that Nam was prey. And this is when, one by one, they would begin to move toward him rapidly, their powerful tails propelling them through the water with astonishing speed, their eyes locked on Nam with an unwavering, predatory gaze. It was at this point that the first croc would lunge, its massive jaws clamping onto Nam's arm. This initial move seemed to be the signal for the others, and this is when in an instant, the enclosure turned into a chaotic whirlpool of thrashing tails, snapping jaws, and splashing water. The Siamese crocodile, also known as Crocodilus siamensis, is native to the freshwater habitats of Southeast Asia. These apex predators have behaviors that are deeply rooted in instinct. When potential prey, in this case a human, suddenly intrudes upon their territory, especially in such an abrupt and uncalculated manner, this can quickly set off their predatory responses. This holds especially true in the confines of an enclosure where their natural escape routes are restricted. In their natural habitats, Siamese crocodiles have been observed displaying cooperative hunting behaviors, particularly when confronting larger or more challenging prey. But humans, lacking the natural defenses of other prey animals, present a much easier target, which is why the relative vulnerability of a human in such a situation can further intensify the crocodile's predatory instincts. Not to mention, within the limited space of a farm enclosure, the dynamics certainly change. The proximity of multiple Siamese crocodiles can ignite a competitive feeding frenzy. In such scenarios, each crocodile, driven by both hunger and competition, vies aggressively to secure its share, amplifying the danger manifold. And this behavior is not necessarily driven by hunger alone. The sudden intrusion of a potential prey item can also create a heightened state of excitement as well as agitation among the crocodiles. And in such scenarios, their natural caution can be overridden by the immediate opportunity to feed, leading to rapid and aggressive responses. Despite his years of experience and familiarity with these creatures, the combined force of multiple agitated crocodiles in a confined space left him with little chance, and his deep understanding of these animals, as well as his attempts to fend them off, were of course tragically no match for their coordinated assault and overpowering strength. Once the frenzy subsided, the water settled, revealing a scene of utter devastation. The crocodiles, their primal urges momentarily satisfied, would return to their usual spots, basking under the sun, their demeanor now deceptively calm. The only testament to the horror that had just unfolded was the eerie silence that enveloped the farm. News of Mr. Nam's tragic demise would go on to resonate deeply, sending shockwaves far beyond the confines of the local community. National newspapers and TV channels picked up the story, recounting the tale of the seasoned crocodile farmer who met an untimely end in the jaws of the very creatures he had cultivated with such care. The tragedy sparked debates and discussions on wildlife conservation, the ethics of keeping wild animals in captivity, and the inherent risks involved. It would also go on to prompt a nationwide review on safety protocols in wildlife farms, and farm owners would go on to be mandated to undergo periodic safety training. Mr. Nam's legacy, however, wasn't forgotten. His family, determined to honor his passion for wildlife, would go on to transform a part of the farm into a conservation and education center. Here, visitors would learn about the importance of respecting wild animals, especially crocodiles, and understanding the fine line between admiration and safety. The devastating story of Luan Nam stands as a stark reminder till this day of the inherent risks associated with interacting with wild animals, even in controlled environments. In fact, as the former president of the local Farmers Association, Nam was frequently advised by those close to him to leave the risky business behind, but of course his love for the creatures outweighed any fear he had of his own life, and despite his years of experience and familiarity with the crocodiles, it would be a single moment of vulnerability that would tragically cost him his life. If this episode piqued your interest, then our previous one about a tiger shark attack that tragically saw the life of a 21-year-old girl come to an end in brutal fashion is likely to do the same. You can find it on the end screen of this video.